Ah, okay, that sounds good.
Progress. All right. So today, quick updates. If you haven't signed up, if you're going to contribute and you haven't signed up for your current excursions, I would recommend you do so. Throughput for the month, we're about half where we were at January, at the end of January. So for all projects, we're at 13. For the limited set that's being counted by most, we're at 11. So just a heads up on that. So for current work for 12.9, trying to focus on Indy.json so we can hand import back to the import team, have that doc out there. I saw that there was some comments added this morning before the meeting. I haven't read through them. Thanks, Matthias, for adding your suggestions on merge requests. But please take a look and see how we can break this down and ship as much as we can of Indy.json and make sure it's working so that we can hand it off to the import team. And then the plan for 12.10 is to be available to consult if we need to, but to really move off of import for 12.10 and focus on wrapping up Puma as much as we can in 12.10. And if there's anything that we need to finish in 12.9 for Puma, then let's talk about it and keep it in. Like right now, Chinyu is finishing up the rugged patchwork for Puma. So we know we need to finish that up, but is there anything else? I called out a couple things. So document and formalize. This is a standard health check for GitLab. I think that's assigned to Camille right now. Is that something that we need to wrap up? Is already in flight for 12.9?
Yeah. So I think that like this, I don't know, Craig. I think that like we need to maybe spend some time on understanding exactly what else is left, because we are running on the tight deadline if you want to make Puma enabled by default. Because there is some discussion right now why it would take to enable that by default.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at my comment, maybe from the doc. Because like at least my perspective is that we can enable Puma by default only on major release because of the amount of the changes that potential user may have to do. And I'm wondering if we miss this 13.0, it's unlikely that we're gonna enable that in the 13.1 or 13.2 because this is becoming a minor release then. So I'm kind of like asking, like, we need to kind of assess exactly what else is left and what we would have to finish, we and distribution team, to enable that by default.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Craig and I discussed this 4 days ago, and I need to get it into an issue. I apologize for not doing that yet. The tentative plan we had was 12.9 opt-in, ideally remove the experimental status and add a stronger nudge in the release post to get more people to try this thing, and set a time frame for opt-out. And then 13.0 being an optimistic opt-out. I think it's going to be challenging to hit. We have a lot of work to do in documentation. I'm not, we haven't really widely deployed this yet, and so, making a change like that is interesting. Plus, we'll have a lot going on in 13.0. We'll be doing PG11 as the minimum requirement plus Puma, so we have a lot of big changes. But I think making an opt-out in 13.0 is probably okay, and then, well, it's aggressive but potentially achievable, and then the removal of unicorn in 14.0. So I think that's the more disruptive change, which is, hey, you can't do this anymore. I need to move.
Yeah, so like one challenge that I find, like if we don't enable Puma in 13.0, when we're gonna enable Puma, then opt-in? Because I'm assuming that at least some of the changes that we start building, like the WebSockets discussion, gonna be heavily impacted by us having Puma in more efficient way. So I'm kind of worried that like if we don't enable Puma in 13.0, we're gonna struggle then enabling that later, and it's gonna impact our ability to work on the like WebSockets, for example.
I agree. I think it's a big enough change. It has to be in a major.
And like from other perspective, it's like I hope that we basically have the documentation to improve mostly. Because like all of that is like from the development point of view, we have upstream Puma multi-thread patch, disable rugged in Puma, the optional Puma support for GitLab chart. Do we have a lot of users of GitLab chart? Is it like super important to have it?
It's like 1,000 deployments that have usage being turned on. We have a couple large enterprises using it.
Okay, but I also saw that like on 12.9 we plan to include that for the GitLab chart, so it's not that terrible.
Yeah, I think the challenge is that when do we make this opt-in, and how much comfort do we get around? So my concern is when do we make this opt-in? It's already opt-in, right? But we're not really telling people to go try and use it yet because we don't make documentation on how to deal with this thing yet. Like the docs just aren't sufficient, I think, to really tell people, hey, go try this. Because if you don't try this now, we're gonna basically turn it on for you in 2 months. So I think that's where we need the documentation. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
So I'm thinking that like what we should do now is like we probably should focus on getting blog posts out with opt-in right now.
Yeah, blog posts would be great, and then also making sure we had guidance. Then make sure we had the Omnibus defaults in 12.9, right? So we get the right defaults going into Omnibus, and then making sure we have documentation available for people on HA, and well, HA is maybe a nice to have, but pretty nice to have. But certainly on like the worker and thread counts for larger size instances, because not everyone has, you know, two or 4 core boxes.
For the HA piece, the reference architectures we've been developing were done with Puma from the beginning. That was done with the expectation that Puma was going to be made more official sooner rather than later. It's another reason to get it in 13.0. If we don't put it in 13.0 officially, then we'll probably need to look at our performance testing work to make sure that we're testing against Unicorn if it's going to be the recommendation longer. But the refs architectures today are with Puma, so we already are testing at HA. That's
really interesting. Actually, I didn't know that. That's cool.
So I think like George, like we are not very far away from saying that this is good opt-out. It's kind of like we need to figure out
what we're talking about is documentation.
Part.
Yeah, so I think the blocker for opt-in is documentation. I think that's the blocker. So we can solve that for 12.9 and give people
I don't think that the blocker for opt-in is documentation. We have good enough documentation for people to start using that. We already have documentation what to do, what you have to do to enable Puma. Why we need more than that? Like we can refine that documentation. Why we get the feedback.
But I mean, like, Craig, can you just Google search like GitLab Puma and see what? Like when I last looked at it like a week ago, it was pretty basic. It just tells you to turn it on, and that's it. And I don't think that's good enough. Like we don't talk anything about any limitations about, you know, utilizing the health check. And so like if you're able to use this thing like in earnest, and you know, I think we need to give them more guidance. And I think, for example, Puma settings are also out of date, right? We're telling people to use 4 threads, which as far as I know isn't. Maybe I'm wrong, but like, you know, I think we should give some guidance on what the worker and the thread count should be for a couple different sizes, and go through more documentation here. So as well as also potentially have some documentation on upgrading with Puma, which is, to your point, if you have Unicorn configuration, you will need to swap that to Puma configuration and things like that.
I don't know, like from my perspective, it's enough for like to reach to people and say you can start using Puma. These are no deficiencies and issues linked. What else we work as for the documentation? There are gonna be enough people like trying that out and testing, and we can just refine documentation and update the blog post. But the longer we wait, it's just the harder it gets for us to get in the time.
Yeah. So I think the question is,
So-
can we update the documentation until that 9? I don't think it's a ton of work, but we're already advertising Puma on the release post. So it's there. We're saying it's experimental, but I think if we want to actually tell people that, hey, try this, because if you don't try it now, we're going to turn it on for you in 13.0. Like that's a different message, and we're going to get a lot more people to try and use it. And I think I think it's achievable. I would just hope that we have better documentation for our customers, so that when we're telling them to go try it out, they'll be more likely to have a good experience. But anyways, I don't think it's a ton of work. The question is do we have the capacity here, given the other import work we've got going on? I mean, it's probably a couple of days of work, maybe for the documentation, maybe a week. Not a ton.
Can we use some help of the distribution team to do HA documentation?
I mean, I think we can certainly. I'm not sure they'll have the knowledge of what the changes are, but I mean, certainly we can probably get their input on things for sure.
Because like from my perspective, like we should be documenting how health check behaves, but like we don't know nothing about how we advise customers to configure HA proxy and how the customer should be reconfiguring and configuring their omnibus. It feels to me that if we start writing HA documentation, we're never gonna finish that because we lack the knowledge. We have the knowledge about how to start and configure Puma and in what setting and how to use health check, but like everything else, it's like we don't know that.
For minimum or MVP, I would only expect there to be documentation that's equivalent to the Unicorn documentation that's there already. I don't know, to my knowledge, if there's like a specific page on or details about running Unicorn HA that's outside of the scaling and high availability page, which is where our reference environments our work is. For Puma and stuff, we do kind of advise a little bit on. We give a slight guidance on the number of workers are depending on your CPU count. We did convert it to say 4 threads when I learned that was going to be the new kind of default. Outside of that, for HA, I don't think there's anything specific to Puma that needs to be documented per se. That's more of a higher level kind of documentation piece of you have to set up Puma, but then you just need to replicate that and load balance it, and that's certainly, I'd say, with the remit here. But
So
maybe I'm missing something.
The last time I look at the HA proxy documentation, at HA documentation, there was basically nothing very conclusive exactly how to run GitLab in HA way. So I would rather say that there is no HA documentation that would discuss that fully exactly how to run that. It means that to some extent it has to be built, the documentation.
Yeah, so I'm not sure we need to do everything. So I think, in my 2 cents, is as far as the need to haves go, it's the omnibus defaults. It's some documentation on configuring the health check, right? And I don't think we need to make this exhaustive or even part of the HA documentation right now. I think we just need on the Puma page something which says, make sure you have this in your load balancer configuration for 0 downtime upgrades, right?
When you say in your load balancer configuration, what specifically are you talking about the health checks?
Yes.
Aren't the health checks the same as Unicorn in terms of the URL you'd hit? Isn't it liveness and
I think the concern is that when you do like a reconfigure right now, you typically don't have downtime on that node, whereas with Puma you will.
Okay.
So
That's a fair share, yeah.
I'm unclear how many people have configured the health checks. Plus the real, I'm not sure. Probably many people have. I don't know for sure. It's my concern.
Grant, do you have somewhere a link to exactly how it looks today?
I'm literally I'm putting in the one that's in the high availability place today. It's a very, like I said earlier, it's a very generic kind of page. It's talking about GitLab Rails generically. It's not talking about specific Puma stuff because, well, to be in the actual details, really all that's required is to say Puma's threads and workers. Really, everything else is just general GitLab Rails config. Health checks wise, yeah, if there's a change in behavior, that's fair enough. That should be called out. I don't know. There is a page to do with health checks specifically. Again, that's vague in terms of it doesn't talk about Unicorn per se. I'll add a link to that as well.
There's this one too, which talks about the configuration of the load balancer.
It does, yeah, you're right.
It's not, our HA documentation is quite poor.
It is. It's not great.
And we're hiring a tech writer in FY21 to fix it. A dedicated tech writer.
There is actually a current task right now to actually clean up the main HA page. Sid's raised an issue about that. That's going to be coming in soon. It's just it's actually just going to be making it cleaner. There's a lot of old stuff in it, but it won't be adding anything. So yeah, if you're bringing in a tech writer, that'd be really good.
Yeah,
because a lot of those pages need to be updated.
Can I interrupt? So in the interest of time, we can probably do this async and figure out what needs to be wrapped up for Puma. I want to make sure if there's any other topics we need to cover for today for 12.9 for this week outside of Puma. I think we have, like, Josh, you were starting to call out the need to have. I think those are largely covered up here. I could be wrong. But let's finish up on that and make sure that we have 12.9 lined up and we can put all the Puma work at the top of the board so that those come in as priority. And yeah, this was important to talk about. I'm glad we did talk about it. I wasn't sure how much needed to be done for 12.9. That's why I asked. So I was checking out a lot of stuff over the weekend, and Josh noticed, because we really want to get import transferred over to the import team. So speaking of import, Matthias and Nicola, you all are focused mostly on import related work right now. Is there anything you all need to cover in the last couple minutes that we're here? So I have us focused on 12.9. Chinyu's stuff, all of this is in flight. He has merge requests for all of them. I'm not sure specifically on each one, so I won't bother going through those. But Matthias, anything you want to cover?
Well, it's like, so bulk inserts, it was 3 MRs, like 1 is merged already a while ago, and 2 are like simultaneously in review, so I'm waiting for feedback. So yeah, I hope we'll wrap this up pretty soon.
Okay.
Yeah, and yeah, so the story right underneath it, like I will probably remove that feature flag either this week or next week. It's just a tiny bit of work.
And then after that, you can jump over to the ND-JSON merge requests that you spelled out in the doc.
Yeah, I had a question about that. So was the idea that everyone weighs in with an idea for how to tackle that? Or like, how do we get this in a shape that we can hand it over to the other team? Do we need to follow up on this again? Like,
no,
this was just my suggestion. I have no idea what everyone thinks about this, if that makes sense or not.
No, I think if you're ready to go on these, then start working on the MRs.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, sure.
And Nicola, actually, you have nothing in 12.9 at the moment.
Yeah, I started working on those MR0 for ND-JSON, like preparation work, but they don't have its own issue because the issue itself is that epic one about ND-JSON, so I'm not going to.
Yeah, that's exactly why I think we need to kind of sync on this a little bit, because this was like my breakdown that I just threw in there because I thought that what everyone was doing, and then we could kind of see what we kind of decide how we want to tackle this, because we had like a slightly different breakdown initially in the MR. Yeah, I don't think it makes sense if like we all start running off and do our own thing for any JSON. That's just not going to work.
Yeah.
So maybe just Nikolai and I can sync with, I guess Camille can asynchronously give some input as well, because I mean he did the initial.
I mean, you can always use office hours tomorrow,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah.
And
Yeah.
get Chinyu involved too, and Alexei.
I created an expert job, and also I did some refactoring. We talked about moving files into the project group and common.
Nicola, I think it would help even if this is part of the bigger epic, if you would create an issue associated with that MR.
Mm-hmm.
And it would help exactly like to track that way as
Yeah.
well.
Makes sense. But because this was a preparation work, I wasn't sure should we like create issue or it should go under this one.
I actually have to remove the proposal and solution because it's completely different from what we are discussed so far.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can just link over to the doc. All right. Anything else we need to cover today? So we'll go through async on this part for Puma, and then make sure that the issues are in the 12.9 at the top of the board.
Yeah, I'll help you there, Greg. I'm done with meetings in an hour, so I'll have time to focus on this today.
Okay.
And basically, I think does the high-level plan make sense? Opt in. Well, we will advertise more heavily in 12.9 release post and nice to have the blog post. But I think the need to have is the release post entry with the big entry on Puma, telling people basically that like, give it a try. We're seeing these awesome benefits. We're running it on GitLab.com, and we will opt you in 13.0. So please try it now. Basically, will be the message coming out of 12.9, with a plan to then make it opt out in 13.0, and then probably removal in 14.0. Is there concern on like that plan? In particular, I guess, but like 12.9 and 13.0 are probably as fast as we possibly can, but 14.0 is there, should we try and pull that in sooner, or is that okay?
I think that this is our only time when we can opt out Puma.
Yeah.
That's my concern. So like there is like the biggest amount of like, it's ensuring that we get everything done for that moment. Fortunately, it's very easy like to redirect people to opt out. Is basically adding like 2 lines into your GitLab RB if they really want to. So it's not a big deal if they decide to not switch.
Yeah,
But
that was my only question, whether we were in trouble, whether like how much tech debt will we accrue by waiting for 14.0 to actually pull the plug.
Okay, I have to go because I'm hosting a meeting in 2 minutes.
Okay.
So just I'm gonna throw one thing. Can we remove Unicorn in like, let's say 13.4 or 13.5? I
mean, potentially. I think we'll need to try and maybe float it by a few others, but we can explore it. The breaking change is likely to be in, I mean, we can say that breaking that change is 13.0 when we're shifting the opt-in, and we'll give you like a grace period to sort of complete the migration. So yeah, I think we can, probably is my sense.
Because like I would assume that it should be enough for us to give a slightly longer window that we have for our security patches and how many releases we support. because we assume that our customers to some extent lag up to like, I think 3 or 4 releases behind our regular milestones. So if we have that window, they could really start testing Puma once they jump into 13.0 and then kind of gradually switch to Puma, but make us not wait to 14.0 because I'm then wondering, okay, I'm just gonna talk.
Yeah.
Later.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna
sounds
kill
good.
the meeting.
All right.
See ya.
Yep.